Hello friends and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out a game called Proelium by developer Broken Beach. This is another game from the LD31 Game Jam, again with the theme of entire game on one screen. It's a bit of an arena shooter, kind of feels a little bit like a mishmash of like Smash TV meets Nuclear Throne. Of course, you know, bite-sized. The game was made in only 48 hours, but in the few minutes that I spent with it prior to starting the recording, I actually really enjoyed this one. I feel like it is a great jumping-off point for a much larger game, and in fact, I'm kind of wondering why there aren't more games like this that are kind of proliferating into the world here. So as you can see, we're in an arena. There's a bunch of doors. You can see at the top there's a monitor that seems to automatically change channels, and you can actually change the channels automatically, or rather manually yourself, by hitting 1, 2, 3, and 4. Only weird complaint, and I think one of the biggest complaints I have about the game is that I don't entirely understand this, because the UI actually shows up on channel 2, which is kind of an important thing to know, like if you have health. So it adds a strange layer of unnecessary complication when you're trying to do your best to shoot enemies and not die and stuff. But let's just jump right into hitting the button here and start off the enemy barrage, and we'll kind of address some of that stuff as we go. So we're basically just going to be shooting at these dudes with pistols for the moment. Each time you kill one, it seems to drop a few coins. I'm not entirely sure I understand what the coins are there for, in case they maybe give you a power-up or something after a while. I haven't really seen evidence of that. There's a little meter, too, at the bottom of the UI, and it sort of looks like maybe it just wasn't implemented, because I was going to guess maybe that would give you like a level up or something after a while. Then we've got some zombies here. There's, I think, 4 enemy types, which I'm sure we'll see all of. And let's just pick up this ammo crate here, because this should give me a different weapon, as there are actually a number of different weapons. This is the flamethrower. It's a good one to have. It actually dispatches these zombies very quickly, and this is actually one of my favorite weapons to run into, just because it immobilizes the enemies or stops them from shooting. So basically you can just quell the hordes, and right now it's, you know, super early. The waves have not really gotten complex yet. We're just dealing with 1 or 2 enemies at a time. But later on, when you have a ton of these guys all firing at the same time, you're going to wish that you had the ability to slow things down a little bit. So we'll run out of ammo soon enough, I'm sure. We're already almost to half. One little bug that I ran into, I think the developers already know this exists, but I have seen it, excuse me, come up a couple of times. When you're walking next to the left wall, you just can't fire. I guess the origin point from where the projectiles come from is probably clipped into the wall collision or something like that, so it just doesn't create one projectile. So we've got some samurais here. These guys can be rather deadly. If you get close to them, they'll come up and slice you. But if you shoot fire on them, not so deadly anymore. They actually are not really much of a threat at that point. So they'll just kind of fade away eventually. I really love the little details here, the moving crowd and the bullet casings and all of that kind of stuff. The, you know, the particle animation on the fire. That all looks really, really good, and I love the art style of this in general. So what I was saying earlier when I said that this was kind of a great jumping off point... Oh, I guess our flamethrower ran out, so should probably dispatch these samurais quickly here. I was imagining, like, I think one of the strengths of a game like Nuclear Throne is in the tactile way that the shooting feels. But I think that one of the negatives to it, and this is just my own personal opinion, I don't really think probably a lot of people even subscribe to the same belief, but I found it to be maybe a little overcomplicated at times. One of the strongest things about Vlambeer's other game, Super Crate Box, was the incredible simplicity and accessibility to the game, and I'm not saying that Nuclear Throne can't grow on you and become more accessible the more you play it, but when you have a premise as simple as pick up the crates and try and live as long as possible, like, you can't really go wrong with that. Just about anybody can grab that game and have a good time with it, and you don't really have to think about it very much. Oh, I'm getting wrecked all of a sudden. Over the health, there's a ton of it here. But yeah, just having a premise that simple, I feel like this kind of harnesses what's good about both of those two things. So it's sort of like Nuclear Throne meets Super Crate Box, or like I said before, Smash TV. And I was just thinking, like, why aren't there more games like Smash TV that have just a simple kind of shoot-'em-up, twin-stick shooter vibe, but with sort of the Binding of Isaac style exploration thing that goes on too? Because if you really think about it, as much as, you know, Binding of Isaac is very much inspired by Legend of Zelda, it's also got some... Oh, I really should have just gone for that crate there. It really does have some Smash TV vibes as well. And it's something that just sort of dawned on me randomly today for some reason. I'm not really sure why I'd never thought of that, but it does play rather similarly, only, you know, it's got its own flavor for sure. I wouldn't ever really make drastic comparisons outside of just the genre conventions. And for that matter, why isn't there a, like, roguelike style Smash TV game? Because actually, Smash TV was not procedurally generated. It was the same every time. And I think you get a lot more out of a game like that. But anyway, tangents aside, this game has sort of done a bit to inspire me in that direction and sort of say, like, this would be really fun if there was more to it, if there were more weapons to unlock, more enemy types to discover. You could have branching paths, you could have various goals and bosses and such, and, well, you get the idea. That's basically exactly what this is at a small range, and then if you were to expand it out, it would end up very much like Smash TV or something. But the presentation in general, good stuff, feels nice, feels fun to play, very accessible, easy to pick up. Again, the only real gripe is just the fact that the UI doesn't show up all the time. The developers probably know that that's a thing, right? Like, you need to be able to see what's going on with your health and ammo and such. And granted, you can switch back and forth, but I don't see that it needs equal billing with the developer's logo there. What's the other one? There's one is just, okay, it's a replication of the screen to just set the stage. And cosmetically, that actually looks quite nice. But then number 2 is the UI. Number 3 is how many percentage enemies are left. So I guess they're just kind of like looking for things to put up on there as an option or something to look at. And then number 4 is just the logo. So, you know, it makes sense in a way, but I would have rather just had the UI be on the screen all the time. It's not that weird to do. Besides, you got all that extra space where the crowd is. It wouldn't even get in the way of the gameplay or anything. So, maybe there's other things that could show up on the other screens. Maybe there could be, you know, if you really want to emphasize this element, maybe you should have to perform multitasking options while you're trying to fight a bunch of guys at the same time. Maybe every now and then it'll, like, ask you a multiple choice question on one of the channels, and if you solve it or get it right or something, you'll get a power-up or something, or unlock something, and you just have to constantly be scanning through the channels to see if that's a thing. It adds a very strange WarioWare-style microgame to it, but I could see that being interesting. But just in general, like, the game plays really well. It feels good to play. The controls, in case you're wondering, I hopefully have the mouse pointer turned off here, but I'm just putting the mouse where I want to fire, and then just using WASD to move around. So, you know, nothing too complicated there. Machine gun feels really nice to shoot, by the way. This would be the type of game that would be just fine to have as, like, just a proper dual-stick shooter, too. I don't know, it might actually support 360 controller. I would check it, but I'm being besieged at the moment, so I don't quite have the time. Maybe when I clear this wave. Oh, I finally got the shotgun. I kind of feel like the shotgun's a bit of a negative just because it's the only gun that has a super short range, and as much as it's powerful, it's really only useful early on. So, in that way, yeah, not super helpful. It'd also be great if it kept, like, a record of how many coins you picked up and how many waves of enemies you defeated, how many shots you fired. All those usual analytic bits are always nice to know, and this is a type of game that I could see very easily making sense to have a leaderboard for. You know, perhaps as you progress further on, you'd discover new enemy types, and, well, I've kind of gone over ideas like that already, but just aside from that, even if you don't want to go in that direction, you could just make it a Geometry Wars style game where you just go for high score, and that might be fulfilling enough all in and of itself. But there's, you know, myriad different directions this game could go in. All of them would end up fun, because the base game is fun itself. So, oh, you know what? I just realized this also reminds me a little bit of Hotline Miami, in the way that you shoot your gun, I guess. Maybe a little less visceral than Hotline Miami, but probably, thankfully, so. Also, yeah, there's also no music, the atmosphere is just reminding me of that, since I was thinking, what's really good about Hotline Miami? Well, the atmosphere, and the art in this is great, just, you know, it's just a quiet experience, generally. But, you know, that's LD Game Story. You're going to get that all the time, and that's not a big deal. I do hope that the developer chooses to go further with this one. If he or she ever does, I would absolutely revisit this one with another video. I could see this becoming a lot of fun further on, as much as it's fun just now. So, with that, I will leave you for another day, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you'd like to go check this game out, the link's going to be in the description. I would recommend go give it a play. Let me know what you think, and leave a comment, because I am curious to have a little discussion, as with all the games that I cover on Indie Impressions. Also, if you did enjoy the video, consider leaving a like on it, because that does help out the channel, help spread the word about new artistic, original, and unique indie games, and that's what we're here to do. And if you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy the message behind the channel, consider subscribing if you haven't already. New Indie Impressions go up every single day, so there will be a few more of the LD 31 coverage bits before we wrap things up and move on to other places, although I might occasionally take a break for other ones in case something pops out at me. But that's just kind of the way it goes. I don't really have a prescribed set of games that I want to cover. I cover what makes sense that day, and it's good. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow.